Hi, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper, back with another unboxing. This box came to me from Delaware, and it belonged to a gentleman who was a big collector of lots of things. In fact, he's passed away, and I spoke to his family, his daughter, and she was telling me that they have model trains and coins and stamps and kind of all of those things that men typically used to collect back in the day. And he was also a big scouter, so there were scouting memorabilia that the family had to deal with as well. So faced with all these things, she went on the internet, stumbled across my website, found me, and we reached out. We talked, we exchanged pictures, and worked out a deal for me to purchase this collection. I've already mailed the family payment. The box arrived yesterday, and I picked it up from my UPS store. And now I want to share with you all everything that's in this box. So let's cut into it, and I'll share a little bit of the history. Okay, so here you can see in the box, there's lots of interesting stuff in here, including a campaign hat. Let me spread things out on the desk and we'll take a closer look. Okay, I have everything spread out here on the desk. I'll be glad to show you exactly what we got, including a really nice classic campaign hat that has a large first class pin on it. And this one is actually of a pretty decent size. Sometimes, especially during summer camp season, I'll hear from some people and they'll be asking me about these campaign hats, but it's like everybody wants one that's like 7.5, 7.75. Face it, a lot of us have big heads. So I am happy to say that this one is actually pretty big. I think that probably is about 7.25, maybe 7.5. It actually fits on top of my big head. So that's a nice find for sure. Then there's some uniform shirts. You know, this older green style were from the 60s and 70s. So these, it's a little bit harder to find somebody today who could wear them. But then this is a double extra large, and it's of course the modern tan shirt. Now this shirt, probably from the 1980s, but you know, we still wear tan shirts today. And so especially being that it's double extra large, I'm sure I can find someone who would love to wear that. Then if we pull back a little bit more, I even found a pair of pants, which again, this sort of vintage style of 1980s. This doesn't have, actually it does have a pocket on it. Yeah, so again, if we assume that there's a double extra large shirt, without looking at the tag, this is probably a good sized pair of pants. And I know that as soon as I publish this video, someone is going to reach out and say, hey, I really could use a, size 40 or whatever it is, pair of green pants, because the modern day pants are made from that sort of wicking thin material. It's much different. Some people would much rather have this really thick old green material. Then a couple of old shirts here, including a little bag from Shift Scout Reservation, the instructor training camp. We have some small things here like neckerchiefs, the 67 World Jamboree. This collection is from Baltimore. And then check this out. This is a really, really beautiful Section 6 conference, Camp Lenoche, Florida. So again, the collection's from Delaware, but then all of a sudden, this is kind of what happens. You find a cool item from Florida and kind of wonder, how did that get in there? So what I'll do now is set up this camera and divide up some of these items that are here. You know, one thing that you'll hear me describe in unboxing videos is a lot of times when I buy collections, I'm buying collections from scouters that just simply did the program, and their collection is everything they accumulated, they were given, events that they went to. But then there's another type of collection, and that is someone who you might sort of call that collector who maybe had a checklist, was going out collecting older items, things that they didn't earn. And that's where you often see like plastic page protectors where they had everything in a notebook and there was a reason and an organization for it. Now, when I spoke to the daughter, I talked to her about taking the actual 3-ring binders and keeping those, since they're heavy and kind of bulky to mail, but keeping all the items in the original pages because that's how he had it organized and it would make sense. Also, there was in the bottom of that box, and I haven't seen this maybe ever, a pillow case full of patches. I mean, ho, 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 right? It's like Santa Claus would bring this to a patch collector in a pillowcase. I don't know if I'll be able to spread these out very well because they're all loose patches, but you know, me as the patch collector, very excited to see that. So let me see if I can share some up close of some of the more interesting items here. And again, the whole idea is just to share some of the history and inspire some younger collectors. Here's a couple of cool things that I found in the bottom of the box that we would describe as beadwork. This necklace here specifically has Nantico spelled out with their totem on it. And then this one is a little more generic. It has here at the bottom some loose fringe. I'm not sure if that was something that he meant to leave or maybe had not been finished with the embroidery yet. And then of course here, nice little Antico lodge. Looks like maybe that was for the 75th anniversary for their lodge. Then as far as historical significance, I kind of took a look at the items and wanted to say, what here was kind of old stuff that maybe he appreciated and wanted to share with other people. And so I definitely think this example where you have what he has here labeled as obsolete badges of office, and then these are from the 1960s, but then this one, that Scoutmaster patch goes all the way back to the 1930s, if you can believe it, the late 30s. Then over here on this side, we have some similar items. Senior patrol leader, all these are pretty familiar from the 1960s. And then this one as well, again, he has it labeled here obsolete awards, and then he has position patches and rank patches from that time period. But then you come to one like this guy at the bottom, which I always struggle with these. The design element is you have this um, wreath around it, and then the color combinations are going to tell you what position that was. So this one, I believe, is some form of commissioner, but I do have a reference book, thank you, Mitch Reese, where I can go and look and see what does the silver and blue with the gold tell us. But then the other really cool thing I wanted to show you guys, which to me really stands out, is he has a few pages of old square merit badges. And when I say old, I'm talking really old. I'll try to squeeze this in here so you can see the whole collection. Scholarship, astronomy, first aid to animals, which we would consider today to be sort of like veterinary science, and then safety, the exact same design that any scout today would recognize safety. Of course, we don't have poultry keeping anymore as a merit badge. Photography is still a merit badge. But again, what's interesting to me is notice that these are big, big, big. I mean, just for reference, you've got to see my hand here. The size of these original merit badges, which leads me to believe that these are very early, probably 19 teens, late 20s at the latest. This style of square merit badge went away in the early 1930s, around 1932, but I think these are much earlier than that, which again, I don't know where he would have gotten these from because, he wasn't that old for sure, but he got them from somewhere and then had them in this notebook to display. Again, swimming, that's going to be very familiar. Horsemanship. Then we come down here to leather work, all that's not unfamiliar. And then life saving. That again, merit badge hasn't changed very much. Some of these have some little soiling on them, but legitimately, I think these are 100-year-old patches, and so I don't think that we should fault them for that. Interpreting and then athletics. Again, there's a little bit of discoloration on some of the patches, but if I was 100 years old, I would have some discoloration as well. Again, here, agriculture, very, very old one. Dairying, which I think is a pretty hard merit badge to get probably in those days. Not many kids had access to a dairy cow. And then notice this first aid. I don't know if it'll show up in the picture with the, he has these in some final pages, but the red that's on the background of this patch is not really embroidered all the way in. So again, that sort of makes me think that this is kind of a teens era patch where the embroidery was not maybe the same as it was later where it becomes much more consistent. Now, again, I go back to Fred Dersh's book. You'll hear me reference that in a lot of my unboxings when it comes to merit badges. There is a reference guide where I can go and check all these. And then, for example, the citizenship, public health, and firemanship, much the same way, some really old stuff. Then on this side, he has a few more, including chemistry and carpentry, conservation, physical development, and then this old shift patch, which isn't nearly as old as the other ones. But to me, having these square merit badges, that's kind of a historically significant part of the collection. All right, well, Christmas morning is here for the patch collectors. We have an entire pillowcase full of patches. Now, my guess is, just from having peeked in here a minute ago, that a lot of these are event patches. So things that he would have gone to, camporees, council events, all things that might be of interest to somebody local to Delmarva, but maybe not to everyone watching this video. But still, gotta unbox it, gotta pull it out and show you guys what I've got. There's just way too many patches for me to be able to pull these onto the camera and show you up close, but I can kind of give you a little flavor of what we have. Again, things like skill awards. I even see a Jamboree reproduction set. Not sure. There's modern tan position patches. In here, lots and lots of event patches. Again, Baltimore collection, right? So here's a Baltimore Area Council 1985 Diamond Jubilee. It keeps going. Here's, for example, a Gettysburg Trail Patch, Unami Lodge flap. This is a pretty modern flap, maybe from the 80s, early 90s. Then here is a patch from Broad Creek, so just exactly what you would expect to see from a Baltimore collection. Here's the Baltimore Camp. Here's a jacket patch from those guys. But then things like this from New York. This is another one, I think, from Greater New York, so there's some crossover there. So again, what I was saying, the kind of stuff you might expect to see from a collector where they're going to have things not just from what they collected. Here is a Brotherhood sash. Not sure as far as whether or not we would see a Vigil sash in here, but maybe we'll just keep poking around. Looks like here's his Ordeal sash, and you can tell that this one is much older than the Brotherhood sash. So not sure if he took a break from his childhood and then came back later and got involved, and that's when he got his Brotherhood. Again, I could keep pulling these things out, but it would just spill everywhere, so I have to kind of be careful. But just lots and lots of position patches. These are the kind of things that in unboxings, I get a lot of things like this, where it's the patches that people wore on their shirt, the events they went to, but all of that stuff can be recycled. There's always going to be a scout or collector who would like to start a collection. Maybe they're a Baltimore person and they'd really appreciate that. So that'll be part of my job now, is to get all these things kind of sorted out into the exactly, CSPs and position patches and rank patches, and then see what I can do from there. But I hope you enjoyed this unboxing as much as I did. I especially enjoyed seeing those old square merit badges, but this kind of stuff here where it's just a whole glom of items that I can play with and get sorted, that's a lot of fun as well. My name is Jason Spengler of the SanteeSwapper. Go to my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com. There you can see my other unboxing videos, kind of read about what the mission of my business is. But essentially, this is kind of what I do. I try to find families who have an estate, a collection that needs to be recycled back into scouting, or maybe it's a scouter who has moved a box. Talked to a guy yesterday who moved a box around for about 3 decades and sort of wondered, why are we doing this? So they recently moved to Florida and they wanted to just finally get rid of some stuff. And so he reached out to me to see if we could work out a deal. So if that sounds like a familiar story, all my contact information is on my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com. Go there and I'd be happy to talk to you, or you can text or email me as well. Whatever works for you, smoke signals, we'll start up a conversation and go from there. Thanks again for watching.